Could the Indianapolis Colts surprise and take a non-Tyler Warren player in the first round this year? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. Today's episode is brought to you by the Nissan Armada. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of horseshoehuddle.com, and I'm joined today by Destin Adams of A to Z Sports covering the Colts. We always have Destin on here to nerd out about Colts draft picks and just draft picks in general. So today we're going to talk about some surprise options we could see in round one of the draft, and kind of the inspiration for this is we focused mostly on 4 players this whole draft season, for the 3 or 4 players for the Colts pick in round one. And that has obviously been Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Jihaad Campbell, and a little bit of Tyler Booker. Me and Destin are pushing the Tyler Booker a little bit here lately, but those are the 3 to 4 guys we've really been focusing on. But could the Colts surprise? I mean, last year we really focused on the Malik Neighbors, the Brock Bowers, the Brian Thomas, and we got hit with Laiatu Latu on draft night. So we're going to try to find that surprise first round player in our opening segment today. And then we're going to dive into some draft questions from you guys on past streams. Make sure I get you guys acknowledged here. And then also some draft questions I have for Destin as well while we have his time. But Destin, let's kick it off with today's hot topic, and that is the surprise pick in round one. Again, Laiatu Latu to me was the ultimate surprise when it comes to Chris Ballard, because even in the past when he's gone away from what I expected him to take, like the Dio Dangbo pick years ago, I never would have thought Dio Dangbo in round 2 of that draft, but it didn't shock me that he was taken by the Colts because he's a freak athlete, young player. He fit the Chris Ballard mold. Laiatu Latu was especially kind of surprising for me because he just didn't fit the Chris Ballard mold whatsoever. We didn't really hear much connecting him to the Colts until like a week or 2 before the draft. So, Destin, I'll leave the floor to you first. Who are some guys that you think could kind of fit that with Latu, where it's like a productive, maybe a top 10 college player like in this draft, but we're not really thinking of him to the Colts because we're so focused on Tyler Warren right now?
I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, the Colts are in a tough spot to predict, and I think it's why you get such a small number of guys that are mocked there and all these different mocks, whether it's us, whether it's some of the national media people. I think the first one that would come to mind as a guy that I think could just really fit what they like on paper, but it's not a name that's being talked about a lot and could end up going higher than people think, is Gray Zabel. I think he's a guy, the position flexibility is insane. Obviously, I think you hear the he can play anywhere on the line phrase a lot. This guy can and has. He can play all 5 spots, and that's going to be appealing. And if they were to go offensive line, and maybe some of the guys that they maybe have higher ratings on are off the board, and a trade back isn't something that comes to fruition. I could see Gray Zabel being somebody they like a lot. And I think fans may not like it at 14, but I think he could be a really good player.
Yeah, and then let's throw some top name. Like Zabel, I think is a really solid player, like a mid-first, late first round type name. If they took him at 14, I'd be pretty cool with it. I think he's like a top 20 player in the Indy Draft guide that we just released recently. But like maybe some like top 10 names like a Laiatu Latu, where Latu we all thought was going top 10, fell to the Colts at 15. Maybe someone like Will Johnson, like say Will Johnson runs low 4.5s. Maybe that's not exactly what the Colts are looking for at corner. But even if he runs low 4.5s, he should be a top 15, top 10 pick. The film is that good with him. Or maybe an edge rusher like Mykel Williams out of Georgia, where maybe the production wasn't always there at Georgia, but you see the traits. The run defense is so good. You could see what he could be. Do you think either of those players, or there's another player maybe in the top 10 that could shockingly be on the board at 14 come draft day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Mykel Williams guy. I'm lower than the consensus on him. So if that's the pick for the Colts, I'd be disappointed. But there's some upside there that I could see why somebody would buy into it. I mean, I think the last time I was on here, I talked about Will Johnson. Like, he's a guy that
Yeah.
I would love the Colts to be high on just because I think that would just complete a full reshape of this secondary. The fact that you would get to bring him in to be the number 2 corner across from a Charvarius Ward on the outside with Kenny Moore in the slot. That's the best Colts corner room that they've had maybe in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's day one of him coming into the league. The tape is that good. The long speed concerns are there. And we'll see what this private workout right ahead of the draft makes it look like for him. If he can add some speed that some people aren't expecting, that'd be a really nice boost. And if the board doesn't fall their way and you look at the tape on Will Johnson and you say, like, man, like, this is just a great player, like, why turn it down? I'd be all for it. And I think the fan base would be behind it. I think Will Johnson has the name factor that I think in the layout, similar to the Leatu Latu situation, to where the production is there to where fans will be excited and you can sell the fan base on it. And after the year that the Colts had and the turmoil that they've had in that front office and the coaching staff, having the fan base back your pick at 14 probably matters more to them than maybe some other people around the league. So I could definitely see it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like Will Johnson fits that Latu mold for me, where it's like not the type of athlete they typically take there, but the production was so good in college they might just overlook it. They've done that in the past for some players. Again, like Latu was kind of one of those players last year. I'm also looking at the trenches just in general for this Colts team, and that's defensive tackle and out of defensive end. Like maybe there's a crazy world where Mason Graham falls that far because of how hectic the top 10 could be, with quarterbacks going off the board earlier than we expect, with running backs going off the board in this draft. So maybe like a Mason Graham somehow falls to them. I wonder if they would consider him at 14. I mean, he's considered a blue chip player for most people. Do the Colts consider him that? But even if Graham isn't there, do they pull the trigger on a Derek Harmon or a Kenneth Grant, where they don't have this massive need at defensive tackle, but they will in like a year or two? It's not like Grover Stewart or DeForest Buckner are getting much younger. So I do wonder how high defensive tackle is on the board, to where it's like, if you're sitting there and you're like, we can't really move back. We don't have like Loveland and Campbell's shoulders scare us. Warren's gone. Derek Harmon's pretty darn good. Let's just roll with Harmon. Like I wonder if that is a thought that crosses their mind.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive tackle position, I feel like the last few years, there's just been a lot of guys in their range that if the Colts didn't have this patent duo of Buckner and Stewart, like I bet they would consider some of these guys. Like they just fit what the Colts like on paper. It's just not a position that they need to target in the first round. If Mason Graham was there, I mean, I'd have a lot of issues passing on it. So I bet they would have struggles with it. But I almost wonder, in a year where it's going to be hard to trade back, I wonder if a blue chip guy like that falls, if that's how you can get a bite on the line to make a move up, to make it worth moving back. Because I think the last guy that I haven't said yet that I know people are going to say, wow, like 14 is high for this guy, but I really believe the Colts like the kid, is Mason Taylor. I think out of LSU, I think he's a guy that is not as highly regarded as some of these other guys we've talked about so far, but I personally would not bat an eye if I see the Colts pick turn in and Mason Taylor's the pick, just because I believe they're that impressed with him.
At 14, though, you would be shocked at 14. Come on. You would have to say you're shocked at 14.
I feel like a lot of things on the board would have to happen for it to be the pick at 14. So like if we're sitting in a situation to where Loveland and Warren both went in the top 13, Campbell's gone, their options were taking a Tyler Booker, or those like are on the board, and then Mason Taylor's the pick. A little part of me might just be like, wow, like they did it. Probably similar to like what happened with Matt Gay this week. Like is it completely shocking that they moved off him? No, but like the fact that they did it is the more shocking part. Like that'd be the thing with Mason Taylor. But like just my general knowledge of just like knowing that I think they really like him, like it'd be hard for me to be shocked that they went that route if they just felt that they had to get a tight end.
Yeah, I would say if you move back to like the 20s, I would still think that's too early for Taylor, but I can live with it there because you got extra picks.
But
if
they move back to the 20s and Loveland's gone for sure. Like if Loveland's off the board at that point and I'm waiting and the pick is in and I'm waiting on the line, I might be at the point where that's who I think it is.
All right, let's just all come to an agreement. Let's have the Bills move up to 14 for like a Mike Green or Donovan Ezeraku or whoever come up for one of these premier pass rusher types, and then the Colts can just take Mason Taylor at 30, so we can feel good about that. I think again that's a little early for me, but I can live with him at 30 in a really weak draft class while getting maybe like 2 additional picks on day 2 is what that would take in a trade up. So 14, Destin, I can't even like fathom that. But you know what? You are living up to the title of this first segment with surprise picks in round 1.
Hey,
So
I know, I know, and I know people would have that feeling. I just feel like the drop off from that tight end 3 spot where I have him and where I believe he is for the Colts. I think it's larger than people think, and
yeah.
I think if they miss out on Warren Loveland, I just wonder what the desperation aspect could get into that with needing to get one of those 3 tight ends. I just wonder how far they would go. Is it at 14? I don't know. We'll find out. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's earlier than people would think.
All right, we will see. I will tell you this: if they take him at like 14, I'm putting this clip everywhere, Destin. You will make up for the Snead stuff with this clip right here. That's
I
what
don't know who that is. Who's that?
But coming up, guys, you have asked us so many questions on live streams in the past couple weeks. So all of our YouTube viewers, I'm calling out to you specifically right now. We're going to use some of your questions from past live streams as a kicking off point to start some more draft conversations coming up in just a second. But first, the Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan in the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcased the strength and the power needed to push the Colts forward as we look ahead to next season. So this week's Armada and clear-cut Player of the Week is obviously Tyler Booker. Booker is a player that puts the heavy in heavy duty, and his rugged style of play would be a fun thing to watch on the interior with the Colts. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what Booker does in the run game as a prospect in this draft. So it's clear that our player of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can with the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. A little aside here, I actually have a Nissan Rogue, so I am perfect for this right now. Shop Nissan.
I also have a Nissan Rogue.
Yeah, there we go, Destin. Perfect guess for this. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, Locked On Colts, every day is there. We are here talking all about the NFL draft. We are just continuing this crazy draft coverage all the way up until the big day, a little under 2 weeks away. We talked about surprises in round 1, but because Destin's here, we have to hit him with so many questions and just put him on the spot with a bunch of them here. And you guys on past live streams, we do live streams like every day around 3 to 4 o'clock on our YouTube shows. I've asked a lot of questions in the comment section, but we already have the shows kind of planned out. So I want to make sure that I am not missing your guys' questions. So we're bringing them back together for this episode here. One that we've got from one of our regulars, who I believe is in the comment section right now, is Owen Stevens. He asked on a couple of days ago on the stream, have we heard if Chris Ballard is confident or fine with running with Jalen Carlisle as a starter at linebacker? And I will say, Destin, I think he is pretty comfortable with Carlisle at starting linebacker. I think he's more comfortable starting Carlisle at off-ball linebacker than he is starting Gonsalves at right guard going next season. But what are your thoughts on that, Destin?
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely liked what they saw there, and I liked what I saw there when we got Carlisle last year, and a little bit of an uptick in snap count prior and a little bit after the injury. I think the big thing there is, while I think they're comfortable doing it, I don't think they're going to feel comfortable going into camp with him penciled in as a starter.
Right.
I think you have to have options to be able to push him just like every other spot, even if Anthony Richardson's the only one we talk about pushing. But I think that'd be the big thing, is even if you don't get a Campbell or a Schlesinger in the second round, for example, just a lock day draft pick that you can pencil in as a starter. I think it'll be big to grab somebody, whether it's one of these veterans on the market after the draft at linebacker, or whether it's a guy early day 3, mid day 3, that you can bring in and just compete with him. I think that'd be the big thing there.
Yeah, I think that's what their plan is too. But I think when we're looking at the massive needs on this roster, the tight end, the right guard, and the off-ball linebacker, I think the Colts are most comfortable with off-ball linebacker in those 3 spots because they feel good about Carlisle compared to how they feel, I guess, about Mo Alley Cox, who's back today, and Mackinsalve / Dalton Tucker at right guard. So while I think off-ball linebacker is certainly a need, and if there's a guy they like, they will certainly take someone there, I don't think it's as big a need as other positions because they do like Carlisle's, even though, again, we need to see a little bit more of Carlisle's before we're as comfortable there. Another regular here in the comment section, I think I've seen him in here again today. He said, "Hello, gentlemen," a couple days ago. Is a Trey Hendrickson trade still possible? Is it still possible, Destin?
Talking Colts trades is always a fun one.
You got to put your stamp on it here, Destin.
I mean, is it possible? I mean, I don't think my tune's changed. I think I put a few different things on the timeline recently that people could go find. Probably going to match up with what I'll say here. I think if the Bengals tune changes to, we're probably going to have to trade him, which is where I don't think that's where it is right now. I think the Colts will be interested, and I think the Colts are interested. I just don't think they believe there's a realistic shot that they trade him right now. So for that reason, like, I still think the odds lean more towards he's going to be a Bengal in 2025. But if things change on the Bengals side and they maybe they land an edge rusher in the first round and they feel really good about that, maybe that makes it to where they feel more comfortable trading him, and we'll see something happen. Draft day trades happen for players all the time, just via how the board falls. So it's definitely possible. I don't think I'd say it's plausible, but it's possible.
Yeah, it's certainly not out of the question, but dealing with the Bengals and trades is not the most fun business for teams. I don't envy these teams trying to call the Bengals when it comes to
the Bengals treat owning a team kind of like we do with like fantasy football trades.
Yeah.
Where like if I'll trade players, but like if I don't walk away feeling like I just like robbed you, like why am I trading? like why am I doing it? That's just how the Bengals operate.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, we got a question in the same comment and also one earlier in this one as well. So we'll talk about this guy, but not too much in detail. What are your thoughts on Mike Green, the pass rusher out of Marshall? Before I kick it to you, Destin, we're not going to comment too much on the allegations around the multiple allegations from his life, which are maybe some pauses because we don't want to put our names on anything there. But I guess just as a player, what do you like about Mike Green? And do you think the Colts would take him, all things considered, in the first round?
I mean, Mike Green had a very good Senior Bowl. I think you could make the argument that he was probably the most dominant player there at any position. And as a result, it was an early end of the week for him because he didn't feel like he needed to be out there all week. So I think the talent's there. I think the Senior Bowl was big for him because he needed to show that his tape at Marshall wasn't just a result of playing lesser competition. So the fact that he got to go out there, I mean, his most viral clip from the Senior Bowl was him basically putting a first-round caliber tackle in Josh Connerly on a poster for edge rushers in terms of just dominating him in a one-on-one. I think those were the things you needed to see from him. So the talent's there, and I think the talent could warrant taking in that range. But it's all going to be about how much a person feels comfortable about the person. And the Colts have had opportunities, I'm sure, to meet with him at the Senior Bowl, meet with him at the Combine, to find ways to get what their sense of him as a person is. I think he could be on the table for the Colts if they met with him and they could give a thumbs up on that aspect. But that's the big part of it.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, again, there's a past with Mike Green that teams have to reconcile with, but the Colts have taken players with something in college as well. They've taken
Chris Ballard has before the Colts.
Right. So they had EJ Speed, obviously, with his stuff in college. Bobby Okereke stuff came out after he was drafted. We got a lot of weird emails about that from Stanford. But yeah, like the Colts have taken guys with checkered past like this without me going into too much detail. If you guys are curious what I'm referencing here, please just look up Mike Green's off-field stuff. Again, I don't want to slander anyone, or not slander, but I don't want to just say things out of context here. But yeah, it is what it is. It's part of the process. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff when it comes to these interviews with personalities. And sometimes an off-field thing can be as trivial as A.D. Mitchell with his blood sugar last year being an off-field thing. And it can also be something like Mike Green, where he's been dismissed from a couple places because of his stuff. So yeah, it's just about how comfortable the Colts feel with that. If they feel like the talent outweighs it, we've seen it with the NFL that teams will take guys with those kind of issues. I mean, what largest guaranteed contract in the history of the sport was given out to a quarterback who had some off-field things. So yeah, we certainly see this all the time. It just comes down to how comfortable the Colts are with that when it comes to a player like Mike Green. But coming up, guys, I have some more questions for Destin. I'm happy that we were able to go back on some of your past YouTube questions, especially to some of our regulars like Colts House and Owen. We appreciate you guys, and thank you for supporting the show. But coming up, I have some more questions from myself to Destin. Take advantage of his time that he's given us today. Alrighty, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we are back with our final segment today, talking more draft questions. And these are more me being kind of more specific with Destin, holding him to his answers and making sure I have clips for draft night, regardless of what he says, if it's good or bad here. I hold him to a higher standard than I hold myself. So here we go, Destin. We're going to go here. Do you think when the Colts are looking at defensive tackle in this draft, do we think they look at their typical mold of like the smaller, undersized, like 3-tech pass rusher type? Or do we think they're finally looking at a nose tackle behind Grover Stewart? Or is it just going to be Neville Gallimore just get rocked up the line of scrimmage every single play? What do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, especially in terms of like early in what they're considering, I think it would be somebody that they feel can be on the field when Grover comes off.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean I can pencil in some of these just big boys that can run in there and be the nose stopper, but just aren't anywhere near the athlete that the Colts consider? Probably not. But I do think there are some options in this class that can still check some of their athletic boxes, but come in and be a very solid gap filler right there behind Grover. That's what I think they'd prioritize there at defensive tackle.
Yeah, because we've seen in the past, they kind of go back and forth with their type at defensive tackle. We've seen the Grover Stewarts, we've seen the Eric Johnsons. Those are more of your one techs, but we've also seen the Curtis Brooks. We've seen the Adetomiwa Adebores. We've seen players like that. So it's hard to kind of nail what their type is there. But for me personally, I like the Aeneas Peebles types in this class. I think they're good pass rushers to be had on day 3, but this roster does not have a backup one tech. Like they need a backup one tech so bad. Maybe that's an after draft thing when the comp picks deadline is done, they can get somebody, but please get me a one tech, Chris. Like, do not put Neville Gallimore in there or it's going to be Taven Bryan all over again. And I don't want to be as mean as I was to somebody else. Taven Bryan had all of my meanness. It's gone now going forward. But another question I have for you, Destin, how high do we think running back is as a need for the team? Do we think it could creep into like round 2, round 3 range for this Colts team?
I'd be shocked if it was round 2.
Yeah.
I think the options that I like that they could even consider really for like what they need, I don't even think they get to their pick at round 2. I won't get into too many specifics on those, but I don't think they get there. I do think the 3rd round is interesting, just via how the board falls, because I think the 3rd and 4th round is probably like my favorite, my sweet spot in this running back class for what the Colts need, because I think the big thing here. And I don't think anyone should look at it like the Colts are trying to replace Jonathan Taylor. I'm not saying that. And I'm sure when Zach clips this later, he'll keep that part of me saying it out of the clip. But
AI is a powerful tool, Destin. I will grab it.
I understand. And everything after this sentence can be in the clip, and you don't even have to even use that. But
Nope.
the fact that in the third and fourth round in this class, I think there are going to be options that can not only fill the void that the Colts have in terms of not having somebody that can come in and be a pass protector, which they used with Trey Sermon last year. But the con to that was when you needed a pass protector on the field for that drive, but then you had to have that player also run between the tackles. The only option was Trey Sermon, and there just wasn't much upside. There wasn't much juice in that realm of things. So I like the fact that in this class there are options they could look at. A Devin Neal, big Damian Martinez fan, and a guy that I think they may have to take in the third instead of the fourth if they want him. But I think the upside with those guys is you could take them in that spot to fill that role early, but they have upside to be true 3-down starters later in their career. So maybe you are looking at a situation that these guys you draft for a role right now, but Jonathan Taylor's contract's going to end eventually, and you have a guy that you could feel good about letting start at a cheaper price point maybe than having to give Jonathan Taylor a second big contract.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said because look, Taylor hasn't been super healthy. And honestly, this team is in such a weird spot this year where if they underperform again this season, pretty much every big contract on the roster is cuttable after the year. There's not much guaranteed money left on just about any contract. And that goes beyond Taylor to the Michael Pittman Jr.'s, to the Grover Stewarts, to the DeForest Buckners, the Quentin Nelson even, which would be insane. So this Colts team really could pivot and restart if they have another down season this year and maybe they have a new GM and new head coach, and running back could be part of that. So I'm not saying that you draft with that in mind or we're going to start everything over after this season. But I do think when you're looking at the board and say you've got your tight end in round 1 and you got your right guard in round 2, when you're looking at the board and say Martinez is your highest player there in round 3, you look at him and say, this could be a legit starter one day. So do we pass up on a potential starting running back to maybe get a no doubt like role playing running back later? And how do we kind of manage that there? Because part of the draft is figuring out your future. And I think if you're taking a running back in round 3, you are kind of looking to what this guy could be as a starter maybe one day.
Can you imagine the positional value people if the first 3 picks of the Colts draft is a tight end, a guard, a running back?
Look, man.
Oh man.
Look, offensive line.
Give me my nose tackle in the 4th just to keep this up.
That's true. Linebacker in there as well. Linebacker. They hate linebackers with the positional value. I understand the argument for positional value when it comes to tight end in round 1 and when it comes to running back, but never when it comes to offensive line. You have to invest in the offensive line, baby. Keep throwing picks at the offensive line, especially with Ballard. It's like the one position he's really good at drafting. Like keep throwing those picks there. But Destin, I have another question for you here. Have you fallen in love with any more day 3 types since the last time we spoke? I mean, that's the best part of the draft is falling in love with a guy who's going to be working at your local Target next week. Like, who are some guys that on day 3 you're like, you know what? I'm coming around. This is my guy right here.
There's a few, and this isn't necessarily only Colts related. Like these are just guys that I've just like liked watching film on that just intrigue me a lot. I've been an Upton Stout fan for a minute on day 3, but I feel like the more I watch him, like in the slot specifically, I really like it a lot. And he played everywhere at Western Kentucky. Like he logged snaps on the defensive line, and with his small frame, that feels like it should have been illegal, but he was. But played defensive line, played safety, played in the box, played a little bit of linebacker in certain personnel, played in the nickel spot. He's a guy that I really like, and I really like the versatility that he offers. He'll be listed as a safety on draft day, but I really think he's going to end up playing in that nickel spot at the NFL for a lot. I really like a lot of these day 3 linemen in terms of just like what they can become. And I mean, Chris Ballard loves a day 3 lineman. He loves taking those shots. He loves just seeing what happens. I mentioned Dalton Cooper on here in the past. He's a guy that I think could make a lot of sense. Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. I'll give Zach the credit on that one. We were talking about him one day, and I started to watch him a little bit more. I like his game a lot. I like how he moves at the position really well. So he's somebody that intrigues me at the tackle spot. I'm trying to think of just one more. I'll say quarterback. I'll say a quarterback on day 3, just to be crazy. I think the more I watch Max Brosmer, I really like just like what his exact role in the NFL is going to be. Like, you're not drafting a guy in the 6th and 7th round at quarterback with the idea of like this is going to be a franchise quarterback. Like, you're not. But the more traits I see, I got to speak with him this past week in a one-on-one interview. Like, really smart kid. Really just understands the ins and outs of football. Like, to me, he just screams long-term backup quarterback in the NFL. And if you can get me a rookie contract and another contract as a backup quarterback in the NFL in the 6th or 7th round, that's a big win. And I think Max Brosmer really fits that mold.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Brosmer. I think I would rather spend a 6th or 7th round pick on him than a 4th or a 5th on some of these other names that have been linked to the Colts in this draft process. But Destin, I have one final question for you here, and this is what really is going to get clipped.
Good.
Where you're sitting right now when it comes to the Colts draft, and yeah, at your house right now, where you're sitting right now, what do you think the Colts do in round 1 of this draft? Like, what are you stamping, saying this is what they're definitely going to do? What's your prediction for less than 2 weeks out right now? What do you think happens in 2 weeks from now?
On Friday, April 11th at 3:42 p.m.,
Yeah.
I hold the right to change later. I'm going to say they end up with a tight end. I think they end up with a tight end now. Which one of those options is, we'll see. I know there's a lot of smoke otherwise. Currently today, I think Tyler Warren makes it to them at 14.
Okay.
So I think I'll go even farther. I'll say I think Tyler Warren makes it to them at 14, and if he's there at 14, I feel pretty confident he'd be the pick.
Yeah, I was gonna push you if you were gonna just leave it at take a tight end. So I'm glad that you you knew where I was going with that there.
Yeah.
But I agree. I do think if Warren is there, they turn that card in. I think it just makes too much sense, too much smoke around it throughout this whole process. I'm a little more doubtful than you are that he'll be there at 14, but I have come around a little bit recently that he could get there. It's just with how weak this first round is, I don't know if a high floor player will fall to 14. But we'll see. That is Destin Adams' prediction. That's not my prediction. You guys have to wait for my prediction in another week or so. But we do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, at Zach Hicks 2, and of course, at the Destin Adams to follow all of his Colts coverage over at A to Z Sports. He does some great work over there. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube where we listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here next week.